Traders, we have 4 central banks meeting this week, okay? And we had 4 trade ideas last week. 3 of them hit profit targets, all right? So let's roll the intro and let's get into it. All right, traders, welcome back to another Monday market breakdown. All right, it's Labor Day, all right? So markets are closed, okay? We are going to get an uptick, though, on that Tuesday, especially on that Wednesday and especially on that Thursday based off of some of the fundamental data that we got coming out, all right? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we go there, all right, I want to give you guys a thank you, okay, to the 80 folks that liked last week's video. I really appreciate it, okay? That gave me a little bit of a high watermark for my Monday breakdown videos, all right? So again, thank you guys on that, and let's see if we can hit 100 this week. I don't know. I want to start setting some goals with this process, all right? So again, guys, if you want to get some of the analysis out as soon as it pops off, boom, make sure you sub, and again, like the video for your boy. I appreciate it. All right. So guys, let's go into the let's get into the meat of it. So first things first, I'm going to run a playback of last week's trade idea for that Euro USD. I mentioned that if we get a consolidation at this 1970 level, that maybe we can get a crack higher, and then we could start taking some shorts back down in. Check out that snippet right here. I feel like we're going to have a little bit more of an up move, and I don't want to play the 19 flat break because that's a fairly substantial move down. I mean, I think we're going to run to the 20s, and then if we run to the 20s, then yeah, maybe we can start looking at, you know, a break of some new structure higher down into the 19 flats. That would be a better idea for me. Man, so that was very accurate, right? So we had a pop on that Euro outside of that range during the Euro overnight session. We consolidated throughout the US session, and then once Euro markets opened up again, we ran to the $20.70s. Okay, and then after we ran into the $20.70s, I think we had some economic data that came out that pushed us back down into the base of that extension. Here's a screenshot of the entire move higher and entire move lower there. So we had a full 100% retracement. So this week is interesting because we could have some dovishness being spoke about via the ECB meeting that is happening on Thursday. Okay, so that is something I am slightly wary of because I do like the structure on the Euro USD right now. If I get a pop right here at this 1920 level, then I was figuring that I could probably take markets up into the 61.8% retracement of the pullback high to the low. I'm going to throw you guys a screenshot right there. Okay, so not a lot of profit potential. It just seems like it's a probable trade more than extremely profitable one. Okay, but if we do get the dovishness that's preluded on that Thursday ECB meeting, all right, then we will get a sell-off, and maybe we can start cracking this 18 flat number. All right, so the Euro by far has been consolidated for the longest time in the past 5 months. Okay, it's been consolidated for the past 3 or 4 weeks, something that we have just not seen the Euro do. All right, so you have to say that there is a case to be made that we are potentially at a ceiling here at this 1920 number. All right, I think we're a little bit above the 38.2 of the larger fib extension from the high to the low, okay? So again, let's see what happens on Thursday. We might have some fundamental data come out and jaw us around a bit and kind of make us play within the range. I kind of want to play that move and a crack above that 1920 number, pop it up into the 61.8, which is, I think, the 1970s above the previous high there. Not the previous high, but the wick fill basically is the trade that I'm looking for. You'll see there's a massive wick off of the bad NFP number that came out on Friday. I think markets can maybe trade up into that if we get some kind of US some kind of US red stuff coming out. Okay, some red fundamental data coming out for the US dollar. All right, so let's see what happens. We're going to get most of the moves on this pair, though, on that Thursday meeting. And we're going to be right here in the top trader community watching out for that, all right? So make sure you get inside of that rookie room. You can actually view the webinars as well, okay? At least the morning webinars, all right? So I had an NZD play last week. You guys know that the title of the video was NZD long, okay? So here's that NZD trade idea, and we'll follow up with the recap. It is there for that U.S. strength to come in and for these markets to edge back up into the 50 at least. Again, you know, I'll make that my target one, and then I'll just move stops again, and then I'll just let the rest of the position ride. And if we come back down and pull back onto the base of this area here after we extend out, then cool. So that NZD was screwing around in the beginning of the week, okay? You guys know the profit targets were at that 50% retracement. We had a huge sell-off because of the North Korea deal and the North Korea nuclear crap that was happening earlier within the week, all right? So markets sold off, came right back down to the base, all right, and then exploded higher. So a lot of us actually got stopped out of that trade. I re-entered at that low, and a couple of us re-entered on that low there, and then markets ran to that 61.8. Okay, so NZD long played out well. The volatility, folks, this is what's happening, okay, in this FX market in the past few months. All right, volatility again is just immense. All right, so you want to be careful. The reason why I got stopped out at break even was because, as you guys can see, here's a screenshot, that NZD was actually floating above the original entry, which is the original 23.6. We were in that 38.2 area. So when markets pulled back, boom, we just got pulled out. But re-entered quickly on that thing. It was ridiculous, the volatility. And then there was another situation later in the week, and I think we're now down at the previous low in that NZD. I might be looking at a buy side idea in the NZD. We'll go in the charts and take a look at it, okay? And so we had two more trade ideas, but you had to be in the top trader community to hear them, okay? We had a CAD buy that we wanted to execute, and we had a USD JPY buy that we wanted to execute as well, okay? So I'm going to play both of those back to back, and we'll talk about them as well.
If that oil inventories number comes out in the red, then yeah, we should get a pop higher here.
I really would love to see markets hold this level here and rebound. And the only thing that's fighting it, again, is that U.S. weakness.
All right, so I don't know if you guys know, but Canada has been the #1 performing G7 country in the world, all right, this year. All right, so an example is the GDP figure that came out. So before I talk about the GDP figure, though, we were looking for some weakness coming in on the oils number last Wednesday, okay? We felt as if the weakness came in on the oils number, we would get a crack at that 23.6 up into structure, and that's exactly what happened. But if you notice here, I'm going to throw up a screenshot, and we were talking about it. When markets consolidated up there at that high after the oil release came out, on Thursday morning at 8:30, okay, we had a GDP figure come out for CAD. And that GDP figure exceeded a GDP, I mean, it was the #1 exceeded GDP figure in terms of the forecast to actual, I think in the past like 2.5, 3 years. The forecast was 3.5% GDP uptick. We got 4.7. All right, so just a ridiculous amount of strength came in and sold off on that CAD after that figure came out. And now there's a 37% likelihood that we're going to heighten rates this week. That's one of the other central banks that's going to be meeting this week, okay? So the only problem is, all right, if that rate hike was priced in on that GDP, while that GDP release came out, and we don't heighten rates in Canada this week, then we are going to see a pullback up into structure. So make sure you guys stay around for the technical analysis segment. I'm going to show you guys the entry that I want to play in on that, all right? I think we actually had markets price in a rate hike already, and if they did, then boom, if we don't get it, we will see a resurgence of capital coming back up into that CAD, because we had a monstrous 270 pip sell-off last week after the GDP number came out, okay? It was the perfect structure. I mean, I love the structure that I saw in that pair. So outside of that, we had a USD JPY buy idea as well. Again, another 26 break. As you guys can see, it came up into the 38.2, and now it's meandering within that range there as well. Okay, and so right now we are seeing a lot of the riskier currency investors moving their capital over into that USD JPY as more of a safe haven type currency. I personally think that's a little silly, dealing with in terms of, you know, what Japan is looking at in terms of their inflationary number, in terms of the asset, the bond number over there. I mean, I feel like that's not a safe place at all, but interestingly enough, it is. So we had markets pull back up into that USD JPY. We're sitting right there in that 23.6 again. Maybe we get a pullback back up into structure. If we get some JPY weakness coming in this week, okay? So guys, let's pull over into the charts. Let's go over all the pairs this week. You guys need to make sure you're subbed so that you can get notified quickly when these things start playing out. And if you want to get on these webinars with us, you got to get inside that top trader community. The link will be in the description as well, all right? Other than that, folks, I think we're looking good to make some money this week. Let's pull over into the charts and let's see what we got, okay? All right, guys, we're first starting off here with this Euro USD. I just cleared us up here in terms of our charts. All right, so what I want to show you guys is that full 100% retracement after we got the crack outside of this structure here. So I don't know if you guys remember, go back and watch the past breakdown. We mentioned that we had a serious amount of profit potential that existed outside of this range, and then we exploded outside of that move. All right, so in the last breakdown, all we saw was this right here. Okay, so we were boom, boom, boom. So this is when we were recording the last breakdown, and I mentioned to you guys, hey, look, you know, we don't really have a buy side idea yet. We don't really have a sell side idea yet. Maybe if we can start consolidating, we can start getting some, you know, an actual entry. And then the second we started doing that, boom, we're actually getting the entry, and then we get the explosion outside of the range there. Okay, so floated back down, and let's see where we're at. As you guys can see, we're at the bottom of the range. Okay, so currently, look, again, I'm thinking that the dovishness is going to come in this week, all right? So I'm a little bit more hesitant to start buying this euro up. again, overall, generally, I want to show you guys that we have slowed down in terms of an increase in price. Okay, so we did make a higher high last week, but the accelerated pace of this euro pushing, it's definitely forming some structure here. Okay, we have a low, we have somewhat of a high in terms of this 1930 level here. Markets have seemed like it's kind of tried to penetrate up there and hang outside of those levels, but it has yet to really do so. So again, if that dovishness comes in on Thursday, we could definitely see markets start pulling back a bit. All right. So showing you guys again from that 38.2 number, there you guys go. You guys can see that we are hanging above that structure there, and all the profit potential that most of the investment public are looking for. They're looking for the market to trade back down into the previous highs here at $1.16. Now, I'm not asking for all of that, you know, in terms of one potential trade. You guys know we're probably going to be taking the extensions down. We might even be playing the corrections back up. But what I would love to see is I would love to see markets maybe start consolidating around here in these levels, which it's already doing, and then eventually we can get the market to start pushing outside of this low. Okay, once we can get outside of the 1850s, then you know that it's fairly promising that we'll probably come down at least into the bottom of the range here at the 17 flats, and then potentially down into the 16 flats. Okay, so let's see what the market does. There's not too much to talk about. We're just going to have to keep an eye on it. If you're in the Top Trader community, obviously you're going to be getting an update on market structure tomorrow, and we'll start doing a little bit more. We'll throw out something on Wednesday as well. So if you guys aren't in there, make sure you get in there. Okay, so other than that, from the low to the high, you guys can notice we're hitting off right at a 38.2% retracement. So markets have pulled back a bit already. They rebounded at the 61.8, which again coincides with the bottom of the range. Again, I'm thinking we can range around a bit. I thought that we could potentially see a retest of the 23.6 and then a sell-off. That would be a very nice little intraday, intra-week play. And then maybe we can start getting the correction back down in once Thursday starts popping off. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for on this Euro-U. Fairly simple. Let's pull over into the Aussie. I don't really want to go over the Aussie so much because I just don't really like the structure on it. Aussie's been very, very consolidated. You guys know that last week we mentioned on the Aussie that this would be a pretty decent place to see a market rebound if we get a breakout and then a pop higher. That's still the case. That's still the case. You know, if markets can hold this $79.50 level, then we will come up and retest that $80. All right. It's just about the structure that I'm not really enjoying so much on the Aussie. I mean, look at this. It's just vibrating around. You guys can see all the irregularities in terms of market direction. It's very, very immense, okay? So maybe we can get a pop higher here. I know the RBA, they are having a problem with their currency being valued all the way up here in the $18 number. I mean, the $80s number. But again, hey, with the U.S. weakness coming about, if we get any more U.S. weakness, folks, it doesn't matter what they want unless they start doing some intervention or some serious jawboning. We'll definitely run in the interim. We'll definitely run to the $80s. We'll potentially come all the way up into the previous high up there at the 80.50s. And boom, maybe we'll pop the high and come up into the 81s. All right. So we'll just have to see what happens with the Aussie. Not paying too much attention to the Aussie. If I see structures aligning, I'll throw it over in the Top Trader community and we'll figure something out in that regard. Now, I do like the GBP USD. It seems like we've sold off a little bit since I was looking at it earlier today, but I like this GBP USD on the higher time frame. So this is what we're looking like on the daily. You guys can see we're having a little channel push higher here in terms of you know, this yearly situation of this market just edging higher. Now remember, you know, there's a lot of issues happening over there in the UK. They're in the third rounds of negotiations. All right, so again, if we don't see the EU, if we don't see them go light on those guys over there in the UK, then we can see some GBP weakness. All right, so that's what people have been fearing. And recently, I did read an article, something mentioning that you know, they were potentially going to make an example of the GBP of the UK leaving the union. So that's pretty interesting. So if you're looking at this thing on the 4-hour, yeah, maybe if we reject this level here, maybe a crack outside of this 23.32 number, we can see a pullback down in if we just don't get the strength yet coming in on that. So I want to play the GBP weakness, all right? I do. But again, I also want to play the US dollar weakness. So that's why, again, if I don't really have that polarizing, you know, hey, this country's doing this and this country's doing that, and they're both, and one's positive for one and one's negative for the other, which means we'll have an amazing directional move. If I don't really have that economic divergence, then I don't like to play it, you know? So the reason why you're seeing GBP range like this and have these massive pullbacks is because you get a data release or some political head talking, and then that weakens the currency. And then on the other end, you'll get the same thing happening on the other end that weakens that currency, pushing this market higher. So you're just having this market just throw itself around, you know, right here at the $30s level, down to the 28s, high at the 32s. But at the end of the day, it's very, very interesting how this pair is moving. So if I can get a little bit more of a polarizing attempt to start taking this market short because U.S. dollar strength is coming in. Maybe we hold over here on the dollar index, okay? Remember, the dollar index is those 6 pairs, okay, all conversely to the U.S. dollar. Maybe if we break this level here, this 93 flat level here on this dollar index, then boom, we'll start getting that strength over there on that GBP USD. So that's something I'll be looking out for, okay? And that's also something I'll be looking out for, you know, in general, in terms of, you know, all the other, all the other pairs conversely to that US dollar. Okay, if we break that 93 number, then yeah, we'll get some strength. But if we don't, then, you know, outside of what happens in the euro, whatever, we know that that potentially will give us some US weakness. So let's see what happens over here on the GBP USD. The way it looks, it seems like there's been a lot of rejection down here on this sell side. But when markets create these wicks, markets seem to tend to start pulling back and heading back into the direction of where all those wicks formed, and it likes to close around these areas. I'm just giving you guys a tendency of price, all right? I've just noticed when markets create all these wicks to the downside like this, markets usually like to flood, and then you usually get a wick fill, and then you get the markets to reverse and head back in the opposite direction, okay? So we might see a pullback before we get a move higher over here on this GBP USD. So let's keep an eye on that as well, all right? So I want to just run over here into the CAD because it is the pair that I like the most in a sense, outside of the NZD. The NZD looks pretty decent too, right here, okay? If we don't get that rate hike this week, we will see markets potentially start edging higher, okay? So after this huge GDP number that came out, man, look at that. We've consolidated down here at this low. If we don't get that rate hike, I bet we'll come back up into that 61.8, which is a pretty monstrous move, okay? That's 120 points. All right, so that is something I am looking out for. Okay, we had that oils number come out. Look how negative that was for that UCAD. But then when that GDP figure came out, that was just amazing for the CAD. Look how it eroded every single you know, buyer that was in on that move, and then outside of that, just shot us down to the 2-year low as well. Okay, so let's see what happens. Remember, Forex is a macro market driven by micro events. Okay, so this is why you're getting so much of a whipsaw. On some occasions, you get that underlying sentiment that just drives the market, okay? And that's what we saw here on this UCAD for the past couple of months. But when you're playing it on a weekly perspective, then yeah, you're going to get those vibrations coming on in, all right? So let's see if we get the pullback here on this UCAD, all right? Now, look, if we break the low, then we break the low. Do I have an entry for that? Potentially, yeah, maybe we'll start looking around and we'll see how market structure looks, you know, tomorrow or on Wednesday at this $23.70s. And if we break that low there, then we might have an entry for it. But currently, we do have a buy-side entry. If we can crack above this $14.15 number, then we can start maybe taking it back up into the we can start taking it back up into the 61.8, which is the $25s. Okay, so that's something I'm looking out for there. So the NZD USD, again, I like it. All right, I like it. This was the play. This is where we were last week. All right, earlier last week. This was the buy up into structure that we were looking for. It happened, and then again, we had an immense sell-off coming in on this NZD USD. Okay, we had some bad economics coming out, some fundamental data coming out on the NZD USD. I think it was a GDP number. All right, we've consolidated since then. Here's another case. If we get that US weakness, okay, if we get that US weakness, then boom, we will pop higher here outside of this range, all right? So, look, in the case that when I draw up these trade ideas, folks, okay, this isn't me saying, hey, I'm going to start buying above this level there, all right? This is me saying if I get the data that supports my buy-side decision, then I will execute on the position, okay? I will not just start playing this stuff based off of purely off of 100% the technicals. On some occasions, maybe, when we don't have a lot coming out, we may have to play the technicals and the technicals only, but in most occasions, we want to tie ourselves into the fundamentals because, again, US CAD as an amazing example. Look how much the fundamentals are really throwing this market around and drawing this market around, all right? So you got to have some idea what's happening fundamentally, because that is an edge. Okay, that is data, and you need to interpret that data. And when you interpret that data, you're going to put yourself in a position where you can make better trading decisions. Okay, so that's the NZD USD. If we get the US weakness, boom. Okay, over here with the CAD as well, and with this USD CAD, if we get the USD CAD strength, if we get US strength, then pop. If we get CAD weakness because of the market already pricing in the rate hike coming in, then pop. If we don't get a rate hike, then we're definitely going to shoot higher. So that's the thing. It's like, okay, Cleveland, what you're saying, if we get a rate hike, you still would do the buy? Well, potentially, because I think when the GDP number came out, okay, remember we were at 3.5%, we ended up going to 4.7. I personally think that they are preluding to the rate hike coming in. I think we're at a 37% chance. All right. So I think that might already be priced in. We've seen this happen time and time and again when the rate hike happens, or when the market is looking to have the rate hike. When the actual hike happens, you get markets going in the opposite direction. All right, screwing the retail over. All right. So we'll just have to see what happens in that capacity there. And so for this USD/JPY, here was another scenario that we were looking at for this USD/JPY. Remember, we were looking for a buy side push out of that lower range there at the 0950s, and we got it, but we came right back down in here. Okay, so let me see there. So this was the buy side push that we were looking for. It happened, but as you guys can see, we've gapped down since then, and now we're sitting right here at the bottom of the range. So again, this potentially is another good situation for this USD/JPY. This is potentially a gap fill, which is good for us, and it also is within our bias as well if we get some JPY, some weakness or some US strength coming in. Okay, so again, I like the JPY as well for a buy side push. And if that dollar index, okay, if that dollar index can stay and crack above, all right, sorry to pull this up on you guys again, if that dollar index can crack above this 93 number, folks, we are going to be looking pretty good for some US strength. We really are. All right, let's see what gold's at right now too. I just like to see an idea of how people are treating it. All right, so gold made all-time highs today as well. Very interesting, man. Good God. All right. I was talking to some of the guys at the firm, and we were looking to do some buy calls in the options market on this gold, because I figured gold would be at 1,500 an ounce, honestly, before the year's out. Especially if something crazy happens in the regard to North Korea, man, this thing is going to run. Okay, so keep your eye on gold. Buy bullion at your local shop, okay? Go to ITM Trading. They're a really good place where you can buy gold, blah, 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 okay? So keep your eye out on that, okay? So, guys, that is it. If you guys have any questions, let me know. I hope it's not too confusing, all right? I love the Euro-U for an intra-week buy back up in the structure. If we get dovish on Thursday, then I would love to short it outside of the 1830 number here, the 18 mids. Aussie, not too attentively playing Aussie right now. The GBP USD looks like it could be a decent sell-off. Okay, look like it can be a decent sell-off back down into what it seems to be about almost 100 pips away at the 2850s. That would be a nice play. I love the CAD. If we get some bad CAD news coming out when they do that rate hike, or when they do the minutes coming up this week, I love the CAD for a buy. Okay, I love the NZD for a buy if we get some good fundamentals out. If we get some bad fundamentals out for this US dollar this week, I love that for a buy. Or again, some good NZD news as well. Okay, so again, gold. I think gold again is going to keep pushing. As you guys can see, we're almost back at 2016 highs here. I think we'll definitely meet those highs, if not by the end of this month, next month. Okay, so guys, look, your profit. Always my motive. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Get inside that top trader community, and we can talk all week. Okay. Other than that, folks, let's see what we get this week. All right. Peace out.